Hello, welcome back to Ratropolis. It's been a while, hasn't it? Or for some of you, this may be the first time you're seeing me play Ratropolis-based content. Your boy is back, and I'm here in celebration of this game having its full release a little under a week ago. I'm gonna run you through the basics of the game, tell you what I think of it, point out some of the learning curve issues that you'll see, and just give you my general thoughts on Ratropolis. It's very similar to what a first impressions video would look like, except this is not my first time playing the game. I played a lot of it during early access. So you get a pretty good feel for the game, I think. There's a lot of nuance to Ratropolis. There's a lot of little things that you have to learn because this game is not created by native English speakers. There's a lot of places where translation can get a little messy and you'll go, what is this gonna do? So I'll be here to point out some of those and help you get a feel for how the translation works generally. But for the most part, understand that there's a lot of cards that you're going to look at and say, I don't know what this does. And you're just going to have to play it and see what it does. You get to a point, I think I reached the point around like 50 to 100 hours in, where I understood how all the cards would work and got all the interactions and all of that. You get a feel for it, basically. But the structure of this video is just going to be like, this is the introduction, and then I will start from this page. I'll walk through step by step, explaining everything as I go, give you a feel for how the game works, and basically it. Without any further ado, start with the settings menu, because there's two things I want to point out. One, make sure that you have I'm not sure if this is on by default or not, but know that you can have a hotkey for each card. Very nice. I am a big proponent of this feature in every card game. Looking at you, Monster Train. The other thing that's important for you to know is that you can pause. This is not told to you anywhere in the game, but you can pause the game. I don't know if it ever tells you that you can use Q and E to move to the left and right of the map either. So be aware of that too. It is pretty important to be able to do this. I think that a lot of the time, especially as your colony gets to be very big, that key binding becomes more and more useful as well. So be aware of those, because I don't think the tutorial ever tells you about Q and E or the pause feature. Pause by default is P. I have rebound it to Z for the ease of use, but be aware of those. Otherwise, this options menu is pretty bare bones. Graphics, full screen, audio. Change the language. How many languages? This has a lot of languages that are supported as well. Korean, English, French, Japanese, simplified and traditional Chinese, German, Russian, Polish, Brazil, or wouldn't this be Portuguese? I think that should be Portuguese. And Spanish. Yeah, I don't know if Brazil is a language. Anyway. I did not know that was there. Onto the character selector. Initially, I was going to go through all of the character abilities, but what I realized as I was going through it is that a lot of it is going to be nonsense if you've never seen this game before. So I'll just take you through with the merchant and I'll explain what he does, and you can get a feel for how these other characters work when you pick up the game and play it yourself if you're so desired or so interested. Leaves a little spice for you. But before we just get right into it, we'll talk about this panel here, which is just your character selector panel. Each character has an unlock track. There are 10 unlocks to go through. You unlock something every 300 experience, roughly. It like scales up a little bit. It's like 100 to start with, and then at 5 it goes to like 330 or something like that. But generally speaking, it's about 300 experience per level. Every level gives you some new cards to play with in the character's card set, or an advisor added. Advisors are basically the relics of this game as well. For experience, to get an idea for how the rate is, you get about 300 experience for a win on the base difficulty. Higher difficulties, you get a modifier to your score, which is directly converted to your experience. So it'll be somewhere in the range of like 8 to 15 runs to fully clear the bar is my expectation. I haven't fully done the experience bar yet, but It's been a pretty consistent 100, 300, 300, 300 for all the characters, and then I think it goes up a little bit as you get further in, but somewhere in the range of 8 to 15 runs is my expectation for how long it would take you to unlock everything per character. Each character has a unique experience bar, as you can see if I cycle through. Like, I haven't played any shaman, so I have no unlocks for her. Merchant, I have 4 of the unlocks done, or I guess 3 technically, but be aware if you don't like long unlock tracks. I don't think it's that big of a deal. The cards that you gain aren't super important from what I've seen. They're nice, but you can win with what you're starting with anyway. It's just like, it opens up more strategies, basically, as is often the case with card unlocks, I feel like. Other than that, I should mention as well, each character has their own set of cards, as well as there being a common card pool shared by all of the characters. I'll point out some of the common cards when we get into the run. Each character starts with a starting advisor, which is effectively their passive effect now. This used to just be a passive effect to each character. They moved it onto an advisor. The merchant starter is negotiator. He lets you reroll the shop if you haven't bought anything from the shop. This is a good example of what I was talking about earlier with weird translation things. The way that this is worded is a little ambiguous to me. If you look at it exactly, allows you to change cards sold by card merchant if you haven't bought any from the current offer. It's like, it gets the point across, but there's a lot of places where it can be a little clunky and you might not understand, like, what does it mean when it says change? It just means that you get to reroll the entire shop. You don't get to choose, you just click a button. If you haven't bought anything yet, you reroll all the cards. The active that the merchant has, each character has a passive starting advisor and an active ability that you can press. The merchant's here is discard a card at random from your hand and gain 10% of your total gold for every card you discard. As you level up your hero ability, you discard more cards, you get more gold. That's on a 60-second cooldown. Anything else I need to tell you about this? I don't think so. Oh, no, there is one more thing, actually. Each leader also has a unique mechanic that they work with on top of their unique cards. I'll talk about the merchant's unique mechanic when we get into the run, but the characters are all very varied and diverse. This game suffered in early access from every run feeling very similar because all of the characters shared cards and there were no unique mechanics. So if you haven't played in a long time and you're worried about that, each character has a unique mechanic. The merchant's is service, for example, which we'll talk about when we get into it. And yeah, it's a nice way. Every run of, if you cycle through the characters, every run is going to feel different. Onto the selection screen here, the difficulty increase is through the pollution system. This is Ascension or Covenant. There's 20 levels. Each level adds something to increase the difficulty. I'm on Pollution 8. You know, this is a very standard thing. Now, the game used to have a very straightforward, easy, medium, hard difficulty system, which did not allow for much depth, I feel like. The pollution system is good. I think that this is a really good difficulty system. You know, it's Ascension. How do I feel about the actual balance of it? I don't know. I haven't gotten that far into it. Not super important to me. I think that the game is completely fine, even if the pollution system is, like, crazy at the higher levels. We're gonna play on 0 pollution for this run, so you can get a feel for it as well. Other than the pollution system, there are 3 maps to choose from: the forest, the desert, and the coast. You get a little feel. Each one has 2 attributes. The forest has more enemies and a special reward of expansion cards. We'll talk about the special rewards when we see one. The desert has stronger enemies. The desert enemies have more health, and the coast have trickier enemies. They have less enemies than the forest, and the enemies have less health than the desert, but the enemies on the coast are bastards. That's how I'm gonna put it. That's how I'll put it for you today. Because basically, the forest and the desert are fine maps that are cool, and I don't really have any feelings towards them. The coast is hell, and I hate it. It's not really that bad, but I think that there is a very decided difficulty increase if you're playing on the coast versus one of the other two maps. The enemies on the coast are, like when it says trickier, they are a lot more difficult just because this game is a lot about manipulating your unit AI so that your units don't just get themselves killed, and the coast fucks with that a lot. I'm not going to play on the coast, we're going to play on the forest. I think that the forest is the easier of these two, but it really doesn't matter a ton. You can also random if you want to. The special mechanics are a special reward from treasure chests that I'll show you when we see the one on the forest, which is expansion, which lets you upgrade a building. But let's begin, shall we? I'm going to start out and I'm going to pause and explain how the cards work and all of the systems in place so that you can get a feel for all of that, because this game goes very fast, and if I try to explain on the fly, I'm going to miss things. So I'll pause. There we go. I'll pause, I'll explain everything because there's a lot going on, and yeah, let's just get to it, shall we? So I'll start with the deck. Actually, no, I'll start with the resources because that's actually where you should start. Your resources are gold and population, or radizens in this case. I'm going to say population for the entirety of this episode, though. Gold you earn passively every 5 seconds through the tax, which starts at 5 and is increased by cards you play. You can also earn gold through economic cards. Population you earn through various means, mostly just by playing houses and apartments. There's cards that generate it too. There's a lot of different things going on here. You'll get a feel for it as you play more, but for now, just think of it as you gain population for playing houses. You'll see when we play our first house, for example. Other than that, there's the wave indicator. The goal of the game is to survive 30 waves. There are bosses as well as normal waves. Waves can come from the left edge or the right edge of the map, and they will walk in to your walls, trying to break through your wall. When they break through your wall, they'll then just keep going until they either hit your city hall and kill you, or the enemy is killed off. Very straightforward, very simple. Your hero ability is on the left here, the redraw button is on the right, as well as draw pile here, discard pile here. Other than that, there's the pause button in the upper right, the advisor tab, which will show you your current advisors. We have just our negotiator here right now, but hopefully we'll pick up a few more, and then your deck. So in Ratropolis, there are 4 types of cards. Economic cards, which are green, military cards, which are red, building cards, which are yellow, and then skill cards, which are blue. We don't have any skill cards, but skill cards are just going to be anything else that I don't talk about right now. So economic cards are cards that generate you money. You'll start with grain, Potter, and cheese times 3 in each of your runs, and you can read what they all do, but I'll go through them real quick as well. Grain is a labor card, which is a special type of card. They're not limited only to economic cards, but they're mostly economic cards that, on top of having a gold cost you some population. Grain costs you 2 population, and that population will be tied up for the duration of the labor, in this case 50 seconds, but after 50 seconds you get 60 gold. So you can see that grain has good return. You gain 55 gold for playing grain, whereas Potter you only gain 50, but that's before you subtract the 17 costs, so you're going to be gaining 33 for playing Potter. But the downside is it's delayed and it costs you population while you're waiting. So there's a definite balance to be had there. Military cards such as guards, which you'll always have. Every starting hero starts, or every hero starts with these 7 cards. I believe it's 7. Yeah, 7 cards. Guards are the common military unit that you'll always have. They have a population cost as well. Unlike grain, guards are like the population cost of guards is 1, and they will just stay at the wall using up that population until they are killed. When they're killed, you don't like lose the population permanently, it just goes back in the pool. Buildings have a space cost instead of a population cost, but they also have a money cost as well. So this building costs 1 space, which you'll see you start with 7 space, and then every wall that you place from there opens up a little area that gives you 8 more space. Other than that, just normal economic cards. that you're going to play with a lot. Potter just gives you gold based on the number of cards in your hand. Cheese gives you gold based on how many cheeses you have. And then every character starts with 2 cards unique to them. They're denoted by the little symbol. The merchant symbol is this little diamond here. The merchant starts with gather plus 50 gold, and if you discard this, you draw an extra card instead. And Night Watch, which has his special mechanic, which is service, as I mentioned earlier. The way that service works for the merchant is time ticks down from when you play this guy. After 180 seconds, he leaves. He stops, he just disappears. But in exchange, he's very cheap and he has good stats. Military units have a hidden stat, which is attack speed, which is why you have to play with every military unit. There's no way for you to know how fast they attack. You just know that they do 3 damage and have 3 health, for example, but guards attack very quickly, so they're a very strong source of damage. For example, I think that is more or less all that I have to tell you here. The last thing that you need to know is that for redrawing, which I'll just demonstrate here, you press the button to redraw once you've played all your cards out. It's not broken up into a turn-based system. This game is real time, but the time will slow down if you're holding a card like this. As you can see by, like, if you watch this guy walk around, he'll slow down when I hold this up. So you'll play the cards in your hand. So we're going to play Potter to get some money. We're going to play Grain. We'll spend 2 population, and then in 45 or in 50 seconds, we'll get 60 gold. And then I will redraw. And then you'll see you have 15 seconds until you can redraw again. Also, you can see here, building cards get played. They take up that space, they have that cost, and then they'll give us a permanent effect. The house is going to give us 3 population and 1 tax. And you play your units at the wall. You can see where they're going to be placed. You can't change where they're going to be placed. So these guards are rear rank, which means that they're going to be behind the wall. And you can see their range as well. Melee units don't have a range. The wave indicator pops up when you have 15 seconds until the enemies show up. In 15 seconds, we're going to have enemies coming from the left. Nothing's going to be coming from the right. It'll give you a little indicator if they are, however. So you're never going to be blindsided particularly. The other thing about redraw that I wanted to get to, as you can see, it goes really fast. It's very, very fast. I stopped and I explained everything so that I could just kind of play the game and you could get a feel for it. The basic flow of things. But the other way to go about getting to draw cards is you can pay 30 gold, which is going to increase as the waves go on. It goes up by 20 gold every time a wave passes and starts into a new one, right? So at the start of wave 2, the cost of redrawing goes up to 50 gold. The last things that I have to tell you about are the treasure chests and the shop. At the end of a wave, you'll get a treasure chest, and at the end of a boss wave, you get a special, better treasure chest, basically. There are 5 options in every treasure chest that it will pick 3 from. You'll get gold equal to the amount of the redraw. Basically, you get gold equal to the cost, or 20 times the wave you're on is how I should put it, because that's a lot easier to say. So you can pick gold equal to 20 times the wave you're on. You can look at 3 cards and choose one. The rarity is increased as time goes on, so like as time goes on, the rarity of the card will be better and better. Right now we just see a bunch of common cards. Eventually you'll start to see rare, epic, and legendary, which are the 4 rarities. And then this is the special that is unique to the forest. This option will change based on which map you're playing on. On the forest you get an expansion card which lets you upgrade a building into a level 2 version. The upgrade system I'll talk about a little more when we get into the upgrade, but it's a very simple, like Slay the Spire style upgrade card to make it better. The other 2 options that we don't see here are remove a card and level up your leader ability by 1 level. Each leader ability can have its level increase, which makes it stronger in whatever way. We'll take a card here, and I will take Ambush. Because it's a skill, you can see how skills work as well. Seems like a decent idea. Other thing to mention, you can move your units around by pressing the button at the wall, and you can use this button to move them more than 1 wall. You can also move them uniquely if you want to split up. There's some neat tricks you can do. You can also like click on the wall to choose the entire unit type and move them individually. I'll try to demonstrate a little trick you can do with that a little later. The merchant will show up at the end of wave 1 and then every 3 waves after that, and he will show you 7 cards as well as this random card. This card slot will always be a defensive wall, which you use to expand. I will take this so that you can see how expansion works in the territory. If I hadn't bought that, though, I could have refreshed this shop. I'm not going to talk too much about the cards. I'll just make the decisions as I would here. Actually, if I'm going to do that, I should buy Restaurant. And you get a pretty good feel for it. Oh, in the early game, usually I would play a lot more aggressive. I would be redrawing a lot more to be generating more money. However, once you place your first wall, there's an event that always pops up that lets you choose something. So this event always pops up when you place your first wall. You either get to take an advisor or 3 houses. I'm going to take the advisor because we do not have the money for 3 houses right now. Plus, seeing a new advisor is cool. Who are you? Judge? This guy's new. Plus 3 tax for every advisor you've obtained. Again, this is another piece of like translation. Not really like oddity, but this is an example of like the for every advisor you obtain just is a strange way to put that, I feel like. I'll take the watchtower here. You'll have to like stop and read what the cards do because I want this video to not be an hour of me just reading card text to you. You can get a feel for what they do though. I think that this game is pretty easy to follow along with. Actually, I'm gonna do a card removal here. Well, this is a tough decision. I'll just take the watchtower. It'll be fine. Watchtowers have the benefit of being a very strong defense. I'm going to put it back here because there's an enemy that shoots over the wall. But the benefit of being a very strong defensive building, but it takes up a space that you want to use later, most likely. Now, on this wave, you're going to see your first special enemy. I haven't really been showing off the enemies a whole lot because I've been talking about all of the other things. It's super easy. You'll have to forgive me. It's very easy for me to just overlook something that I should be talking about just because there's so much happening to explain in such a short amount of time. This game is definitely information overload. But enemies are pretty straightforward, I feel like. This big guy is our first special enemy. In the first 10 waves, there are 3 special enemies. The big boys, which have more health. I could just ambush him and kill him instantly. Actually, I will, so you can see how it works. So ambush costs 12 gold and does 50 damage to a target enemy. You play it, you hover it over the enemy you want to kill, it highlights them. It's a little finicky with targeting, but it'll highlight the enemy that it's going to kill, and then when you let go, they will die. Or rather, they'll take 50 damage, I should say. But yeah, this is the whale event from Slay the Spire. You get this pop-up of choose one of 3 benefits, effectively. The event system in this game is broken into 2 types of events: random events, which just happen randomly, and then there's a seeded set of events that are that happen starting on wave 4. They happen every 5 waves, and we'll see that at the end of next wave. And what you pick in the earlier events dictates what you'll see in the later events. So as you get more and more skilled, you can start to find the outcomes that you want, because at the end on wave 27 you get a very special strong benefit based on what path you took through. And I'll take another advisor here. +1 tax for every constructed building. Wow, we got really good advisors here. Holy moly. I would like to take Fletcher because Fletcher is a good unit to have in this early game, but I need to take a house because our population is lacking. As I said, I'm not going to go super far. I'm going to go probably to wave 14. After the second boss of, or after the first boss of the second set of waves, I will probably end this run and go back to the main screen. The bosses show up on, there's no real set pattern, I don't think, that I can give you like a general rule of thumb for, because it's kind of variable. But waves 10, 20, and 30 have the hard boss of the wave set. This is basically split up into 3 acts, if you want to think of it in Slay the Spire terms. Waves 1 through 10 are this type of enemy. Waves 10 through 20 are the next step up, where the enemies have more health and do more damage. And like you get some unique enemies that are different from what you've seen in the past. They aren't just like walk straight at you enemies. with bosses that are a little more challenging than just bigger version, as you'll see. And then waves 20 through 30 are where the difficulty spikes up, the final boss being a very big enemy that you need to be sure that you've planned for accordingly. This is the event. This event always pops up on wave 4. What you choose here dictates basically the path you take. There's a few different guides. I wrote a guide that has like a spreadsheet guide through the events, and there's also a guide on the Steam page, or in the Steam workshop for this game, if you want to take a look at how the events play out. For now, I will take the removal of a card here. And I'll remove cheese. General philosophy is to remove cheese, for me anyway. Everyone who plays this game is going to have different takes on it. I like to remove all of the cheeses quickly because they are bad cards. If you play a cheese with 3 cheeses in hand, you make 50 gold, which is not great to me. So I don't like it particularly. Bosses, though, are going to spawn. I'll just tell you the waves that they spawn on. I'm just gonna rattle them off, and you're gonna go, what the hell did this guy just say? But bosses will spawn on waves 6 and 10, 13, 16, and 20, and on waves 23, 26, and 30. The bosses that you fight on waves, like on wave 6, indicates who you're fighting on wave 10, although the wave 6 boss is just, or the wave 10 boss is just 2 of the wave 6 boss. The boss that you fight on 13 and 16 indicates who you're fighting on 20, and the boss that you fight on 23 and 26 indicate who you're fighting as your final boss. Although the forest is kind of weird because it has 3 different final bosses, and 2 of them have a same like condition on who you can fight. It gets a little finicky in there, but general rules only here. You can get, at least you can get a feel for it. So like, for example, we're gonna see our first boss on the next wave. Because we've been fighting and we know wave 3 was the infected fat boys, that means that we're going to face the very big infected fat boy on wave 6. I'm just gonna move my army over there to deal with him because we are not in a great position, but I've been mostly explaining instead of trying to like min-max super hard. We're on the easier difficulty as well. We're on pollution 0 for the reason of I want to talk everything through. If you're impatient and you just want to go, you can click the wave button to spawn the wave sooner. You get a little money for that as well. You can tell a boss by the health bar above their head. They are pretty straightforward for the most part. Some bosses have some different mechanics that you have to watch out for. There's a boss that steals your cards, for example, and you can see he has a little more than 50 health. Yeah, as it looks like about 60 health. You get a pretty good feel for the game though. Overall, there's a lot, right? I think that Ratropolis is a game that when you first look at it, it is very much a what am I looking at right now sort of situation. When you kill the bosses, you get these elite treasure chests, which have different options. Instead of the 3 from 5 that I talked about earlier, there's 4 total options in this treasure chest. You can get a legendary card. You get to look at 3 legendary cards and pick one of them. Legendary cards are supposed to be more powerful, but some of them are really bad. Like Noble, for example, is a very bad legendary card, in my opinion, but some of them are very strong as well. Balance of the legendary cards isn't exactly what I want to be going super in-depth on here. You can get a feel for how the upgrades work. Effectively, the rule of thumb for the upgrades is when you upgrade a card, it generally becomes 50% better in all ways. So, but the cost also increases by 50%. So Potter goes from 10 gold for every card in hand to 15 gold, but it also goes from 17 cost to 26 cost. Night Watch goes from 15 cost to 23 cost, but the service time goes up as well, and his stats go up. You get a feel for it. This card goes up to 2 cards when discarded. Grain goes up by 3 cost. You see how it works? The population cost of cards will never increase though, I'm pretty sure. You can also choose to just gain an advisor. They'll show you a random advisor here that you click on. And the 4th option is territory expansion, which gives you 1 wall and 2 houses to basically increase your population and stimulate your economy. In this case, since we're just going short term, I'm going to take an upgrade. What am I going to upgrade? Great question. I'll upgrade Gather. Something else to point out, Gather, or rather, just in general, when you redraw your hand, all of the cards in your hand are counted as discarded. So even though I don't have specifically discard cards in this deck, you'll see normally you draw 5 cards in your turn. I discarded Gather on this turn, so I draw 7 cards. So basically now I draw my entire deck every time that I redraw, which is a good thing. More or less. That's mostly it. I'll play through the rest of these waves so you can get a feel for the flow of the game and all of that, but you get a pretty good feel for it, I think. There's just a lot. There's a lot. There is, like I was saying, there's a whole lot of information to look at. Plus you gotta learn what all the cards do as well, but that's card games in general, right? There's a lot of a learning curve for most card games in my mind. I'll use the hero ability. I don't tend to use the merchant's hero ability as much as I should, but you can see how this works as well. You press it, discards a random card, we gained 126 gold, which was 10% of our gold at the time when I pressed that card. I'll take the expansion card so you can see it, exactly how it works. It's an ephemeral card, which we talked about. Also events, right? It's hard to, this is the thing, right? It's hard to get a coherent line of dialogue going because an event pops up and then I have to stop what I'm saying to tell you about this event, where I'm gonna say, get lost, Morpheus rat. No, I don't want the red box or the blue box, but there's a lot of events like this. I'll actually take the syringe card because it looks silly. But ephemeral cards are going to be removed from your deck after used or discarded, as you can see there. So we can upgrade anything. Any of these buildings, except for our town hall, can be upgraded. I'll upgrade the watchtower. Watchtower level 2 shoots 2 arrows instead of 1. Pretty cool. Oh, we're getting a lot of watchtowers here. No complaints from me. If you're feeling lucky, you can gamble. You can tell what kind of card it is based on the card back, so this is going to be a random building. I'll do it because it's fun. Apartment is really good. Wow. Great gamble. Extremely good payout. But generally speaking, I would not recommend gambling. I think buildings are okay because they're single use, but you tend to want to keep your deck pretty small. Apartment, by the way, it's basically 2 houses. 8 population, 2 tax. Check out the syringe effect, though. Makes your unit bigger. One of the other mechanics, like, now you can see, the other thing about syringes, you can see a very interesting niche mechanic about this game, which is that the range of your units is tied directly to their size. If you watch, oh, I'm gonna die on the left side, by the way, because there's enemies that jump the walls over here. These runner type enemies jump over your walls, and because my defense is just a bunch of things that shoot from behind the walls, enemies that jump over the walls kill me. That's a bit of the you can't just stack up a unit behind the wall and go, hey, I have a really big wall that stops you from killing me, because they throw curveballs at you like that. There's different ways that all of the enemies deal with it. Some enemies are just ranged and kill you over the wall, things like that. But generally speaking, you just kind of play out the units that they start you with. Try out some new units here and there. You'll get a feel for what's good and what's bad. Like Nightwatch, for example, is a lot better than I thought he was initially. But basically, I feel like you definitely have to play every card in the game at least once. There are some cards that you can read and go, this is awful, like budgeting. But for the most part, I think that trying each card yourself and getting a feel for what's good and bad yourself is the way to go. Like, play each card once, see how it feels. Because of the choice that I picked on the last event, I see this event now. The Scout's Demands is always what this is going to be called, but the 3 options are going to be different every time based on what you've done. I will take another Advisor because why not? -1 attack to all enemies. Oh, that seems fine. You can see now, wave 10, we're going to see the big final wave, the penultimate wave of this set of 10 waves. This is the one that's basically the culmination. The waves get a little harder every round until they hit you with the final wave of the round, and then it resets. So you can see we're seeing, wow, that's a lot of enemies. 9, 11, 15, 17, it's 21 enemies coming at us. Oh god. And then a plague rat event on top of that. These plague bane rats actually just scare me terribly. Thankfully I didn't click that. I didn't open that before this boss wave started because I probably would have just died. This boss wave is going to be everything that we faced all put together. 2 big bosses, a bunch of the spitters that shoot over the wall, some of the fast enemies that jump over the wall, and a bunch of the grunt goons. And we're just going to rip it all apart because we're fine. We have 5 guards, they're tearing it up. I spent some of my money to redraw to bulk up for this wave. At the end of that wave, you just get a normal legendary treasure chest. You can always look at the selected card as well and then cancel. This is a good card as well to show you like, hey, this is a mechanic that you may not understand. Wave cycle. What does it mean when it says plus 5 seconds wave cycle? I read Public Bath because I've played this game enough times that I go, oh yeah, I know what this means. But this is one of those things where it's kind of ambiguous. Public Bath, if I were to take and play this, it adds 5 seconds to the time between waves. So it'll take, so if it right now if I were to play this, actually I will play this just so you can see how it works. There's 60 seconds to the next wave. It's counting down, you can see we're at 52, 51. Public Bath is a good building, by the way. If you're struggling with the game, you should definitely pick up Public Bath when they offer it to you because 5 extra seconds makes a big difference. But you'll see, it just goes up to 47 there. Having more time is one of the best things you can do. More time means more money, more time to put out your units, more time for your active buildings to pay off, more time to just work with what you're given. Grab the market. Purchase a card is just you get every 120 seconds you get to look at a merchant window and pick one card from it. The merchant comes in fixed intervals, but more time is still a good thing. Now, as I say that, I'm just going to click the button. Oh my god, I forgot about the Plague Bane Rats. This event, the event that we got earlier, made these Plague Bane Rats spawn, and they just come and charge into the wall. And now that we're on wave 11, you can see the new enemies that we're going to face, which are weasels. They're bigger, they have more health, they do more damage, and because they're bigger, they have a longer range. For my money, a lot of the game plan of Ratropolis is to kill the enemy before they can kill you. Which is why I tend to just stack up a bunch of guards, let the enemies run into you. Now this strategy that I have going here will fall apart when you go to wave 20, but by wave 20 you need to scale up your damage. Winning the game is a whole different thing from understanding the basics. On wave 12 you'll see your first special enemy. We see these shamans. They buff their allies if they get to, but we are doing too much damage for you to really see what they do. But if I don't do this, then I'm going to get run down, more or less. Kind of accelerating now because I'm going to wrap it up here. Bring on the final wave that we're going to see, wave 13, which will show you the first boss of the second set of waves. We got this shaman, he's going to buff all of his buds with 10 attack and some movement speed. Buffs himself as well, he's going to walk up, he's going to hit our boys. They're going to come up and hit the wall. Worth noting, what I'll do here actually is I'll let you see what happens when a building gets destroyed. You saw it earlier when the enemy jumped the wall, it just becomes unusable, but I'll let you see what happens when the wall gets broken as well. Although I might not be able to because of the watchtowers. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a difficulty to do. We'll see if I can do it though, just so you can see. Oh yeah, also you can move enemies more, or move your boys more than one wall if you want to. I would recommend against it unless you're certain that you want to, because it's hard, like I can't just stop them from making that move basically. I'm not even gonna be able to. This is why I think, because of the fact that this game is a kill enemies before they kill you sort of situation, this is a good example of why the forest is easier. The enemies are less health, but they come in bigger waves, like there's more of them. But that doesn't really matter when you just kill them off. So yeah, I think I'll show you this market here so you can see the market. We can buy one card here if I want to. Buy that wall, why not? And then I'm just gonna head back to the main menu here. There is no saving and quitting in this game, important to note as well. A run takes, early on, the runs were taking me about 45 minutes to an hour. Here's the unlock system, by the way. Wave 13, we got 130 points, 10 points per wave survived, basically. But a run takes somewhere in the range of 45 minutes to an hour, I would say, and there is no save and quit. But yeah, Ratropolis. How do I feel about it? I think that Ratropolis is a very good game. Well, it's a strong game with some flaws, is how I would put it. I definitely think that the balance of the game is a place of concern, but that only really matters if you're playing on the highest difficulties. For me personally, and I can't tell you how it feels on the highest difficulty now because I haven't. I'm speaking from my early access experience, but this game tends to have a very feast or famine system in it, where you are either able to generate more money than it costs you to pay to redraw, which leads to you snowballing more and more money until you hit the gold cap, or you are struggling and barely able to make enough money to play out your units. This is my experience, but this might be changed as you get into the higher difficulties now. On the lower levels of difficulty, you can just play around with a bunch of different cards and mess around. The enemies are pretty weak, but as you get higher on, the enemies become a lot more difficult, I find. And yeah, do I recommend Ratropolis? Hell yeah, I think this game is good. I think it's definitely worth your time. I don't think that this is something, my friends have asked me, because my friends have been getting into Slay the Spire, and they're like, oh, well, what about Monster Train? What about Ratropolis? What about those other card games you play? And I think that this game is a good game to play if you're sick of Slay the Spire. You've put in all the time you want to put into it, pick up Ratropolis. Sure, it's different enough. It doesn't just feel like another Slay the Spire. There's plenty going on to learn. There's a lot of little interesting nuance, and there really is there's a lot of fun little technical things that you can learn. I didn't show off the trick, but a good example of a technical move you can do is those spitters that we saw shoot shots over the wall, aiming to kill your guards. But what you can do is you can just move your guards back to another wall and then move them forward. They'll start attacking as soon as an enemy's in range, putting them out of range of the shot. There's things like that you can do all over the place, and there's a ton of interesting units to play around with, a lot of different fun strategies, play no units and just kill enemies with skills, things of that nature. So yeah, I would recommend Ratropolis to you. I think that this game is good, but it definitely has its moments of frustration where you go, hey, that's weird, right? I haven't seen it since release, but there was an issue in beta where your units, your melee unit AI, can just get messed up and they'll just keep walking forward into more and more enemies out of the range of all of your damage dealers. I've lost a few runs to that. There's enemies on the coast that can soft lock your game if you have all melee units. I haven't had it happen a lot, but it does still happen. I almost had it happen to me on stream since release. These are just some examples of some of the things that can happen that take away from the game. But for the most part, I think that as long as you can look past the translation issues, which you'll get over if you play long enough, you just gotta play the cards to learn what they do, and you can get past the weird quirks with how unit AI works and how some of the cards may not work as you would expect all the time. I think that this game is good. I think that this is definitely worth your time, because the different unit comps you can make and watching enemies or watching your units just rain death on massive waves of enemies is very satisfying. And with that, I think that concludes my thoughts on Ratropolis. Give it a shot. That's what I would say. Give it a shot. And I would say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please feel free to leave me a like and drop me a comment. Tell me what you think of Ratropolis. I don't know if I'm going to be rebooting the Ratropolis series. I'm not sure I want to commit to 2 daily videos of gameplay per day, but I wanted to make this video to drum up a little information for Ratropolis, if you will. A lot of people because I've been streaming it. A lot of people have been like, hey, what is this game about? What do you do? So I figured, hey, I should remake this video. It's been long enough. I can give you another one. Why not? But with that, I hope you have a good day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.